Hey guys, welcome back to the Tundra podcast. I know it's been a couple months, so apologize for the wait. We actually recorded this episode a long time ago, and we've just been really busy. We had a couple shows last month, I think, and we've got a lot going on behind the scenes. So we're very busy as far as Tundra stuff goes. So be keeping an eye out for some upcoming stuff in the near future. But so excited for this new episode of the podcast. I got to sit down over the internet with Dakota Whiteside, who probably most prominently is known in the Christian music community for being the man, the myth, the legend behind Desolate Tomb. But we get a little bit into his musical background, music projects he's been involved with in the past, and as it pertains to Tundra, he is the one who mixed and mastered our record Eternal, which is out now, streaming everywhere. Go check it out if you haven't already somehow. But we get into that as well. Great conversation, so hope you enjoy that. Before we get into it, a reminder to do all the stuff that helps out the band. We're in a little bit of a hiatus right now from shows. We're in between drummers. We have a couple people we're talking to, so hopefully that works out and we can get back to doing shows soon. If you want to see when shows are announced, follow us at Tundra Metal Band on Facebook and Instagram. And if you want to try out for drums, you can throw your name in the hat, reach out to us. And also, if you want to see a lot of our YouTube content early, we have a couple other videos in the works right now. You can see all of that early by heading over to patreon.com/Tundra Metal Band. That's the best way to support us, honestly. Not only are you going to get to see a lot of our content early, but you're also going to get a discount if you're at a certain tier. I don't remember what tier, but you can also get a discount code for our Bandcamp, where you can also pick up some merch if you want to pick up our CD, if you want to pick up a t-shirt. That also helps out a lot. But if you don't care about seeing stuff early, you just want to watch our content and support us that way, that's great. You can make sure you subscribe to us on here on YouTube to see our new videos when they come out. All right, without further ado, this is my interview with Dakota Whiteside. Dakota Whiteside, thank you so much for hopping on to the Tundra podcast. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. How are you today?
Good. Busy. So, why don't you do, I'll probably have already given a little bit of a explanation to who you are, what you do in the intro, but so it can come from the horse's mouth, so to say. What is it that you do, and how are you involved in the scene and all that?
So I am the sole operator, I guess you could say, of Desolate Tomb. I write all the music, record it all, mix and master it all, a full solo effort in that regard, and do a little mixing on the side as I can as those projects come across.
Right on. So how did Desolate Tomb come about? Because was it always just a you thing? Have you done it with, I kind of had in my head that maybe it was like a group project at one point. So,
Mhm.
and do you do the mixing and mastering for that as well, or do you outsource for that?
So, uh, so how Desolate Tomb came to be was it's always been a solo thing. Back in 2018 is when it was officially became Desolate Tomb. But before that, probably 2017, maybe even 2016, is when I first branched out with the idea of wanting to do like my own music, my own solo project.
Mhm.
So I started writing and experimenting with that. That's also when I got into audio production. So I was learning that also. And it came about because little bit of a low point in my life with music at that point. I was in All of Sin, and then before that, I also had a band called Romero. And then after that, I was in Broken Flesh for a stint. I think what officially made me want to dive into doing solo project was that I had this experience. Tried to start a band with this group of friends, and it's going great. And then all of a sudden it just kind of dissipated, and that really burned me in a bad way and put a sour taste in my mouth towards being in a band, because for me that was like a not really last ditch effort, but that was like me taking another stab at having a band. And my headspace at the time was, like I said, feeling pretty low about music as a whole at that point. And after that experience, I was honestly debating on, just moving on from music. But, I had the bright idea one day, and my wife even influenced the idea a little bit of just making my own stuff. I've been a musician for 20 years, so I knew I knew how to play guitar, obviously. I could play bass, and vocals are still kind of a new thing for me. I'd been doing them for a few years, but I'd never done them in a band. Um, and then drums. I don't know how I came with the knowledge to do drums, but I don't know. When I first started, I was just writing what sounded cool. I didn't
Yeah.
care if like it was humanly possible or not. I was just
I've
experimenting.
definitely programmed some drum parts that I don't think a drummer could actually play, but
Yeah, yeah. So you know how it goes. So I was just jumping all in and getting after it. And at first, I didn't actually run with the name Desolate Tomb. I first wanted to run with the name Gravewalker, and that's kind of like the last band that fizzled out. I started it by myself, but then was like kind of talked into by some friends of bringing other people on. And anyways, that went the way it did. But then from there, I was running under the name Horcrux for a bit. And I liked, so the idea I had behind that, it's really nerdy actually. I was a big Harry Potter fan,
oh no.
and I thought about in the story how the Horcrux, and again, this is going to get really weird, but how, Voldemort splits his soul into these Horcruxes. And I was like, that's kind of like what God does with us, me trying to like spin a good light on it. I'm like, looking back, I'm like, man, that was really corny. Like, why
Yeah.
did I, why?
Yeah.
um, but that's what I ran with. And I was like, I was going to run with Horcrux. Well, I put out a single and people start telling me, I guess, so long story short, there was already like three or four other bands named Horcrux in the world,
Oh
and
no.
one of them was a fairly popular metalcore band from
Uh,
Canada. They had a pretty good following, and so when I put that song out, they were like, I had got comments was like, "This isn't like Horcrux. So what is this?" And I was like, "What?" So then that's when I found like there was like that band. There was a random black metal band from I don't know where. I think Europe, if I remember correctly. I don't know. It was they were all over the place and all over different genres. So I was like, well, that's great. Now I need to find an original name. And so I was just like, what do I go with? And it's kind of funny because at first, Empty Tomb came to mind. I thought about Empty Tomb, but there's like the Christian slam band, The Empty Tomb. And I was like, well, I can't use that obviously, but I like that concept
yeah.
of, the empty tomb, what it represents. And so I can't even remember. I think I would just literally went to like thesaurus.com or something. Like, what are like synonyms for empty? And I saw desolate. And I was just like, desolate tomb. Like, that is
Desolate's a cool
sick.
word. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And so that's where that began. And that was late 2017, early 2018. And I think I put out the first sheepskin demo, which was like the first thing is Desolate Tomb in April or May of 2018. And I had like a little intro I threw together for it. That's where I released Sheepskin for the first time. And then I actually redid the song I released as Horcrux, Spitting Nails, and released those three as like a little, I didn't even call it a demo, I call it like a promo, like a 3-song promo. And so that's kind of the story, the origin of Desolate Tomb, and the rest is history to get to the point where we are now.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. It's a much more interesting story than how Tundra got our name. Our name exists because I didn't think that this band would have any longevity, so I chose something generic and oops. But but it is an interesting dynamic, the solo project versus being in a band. I didn't know that you were in Broken Flesh for a period of time, but um when Tundra started, we were just a solo project. It was just me writing songs, and as it kind of like there was a little bit of buzz, and there were some people who were interested in making more music. And what's nice about doing it on your own, especially if you have the know-how to do the recording and stuff, is no one's going to tell you how to do it. You can just make the
Yeah.
songs exactly the way you want to make them.
Yep.
And then also if it's a solo project, you don't have to worry about inner dramas, like
Oh,
i've
yes.
i've worried about like I like the people in my band. What if what if we had some kind of crazy falling out, or like my brother's in the band? I don't need that extra drama. So those kind of things. And but on the flip side is like as a solo artist, I think especially in heavy music like what we do, a lot of it's in the live stuff, you know, like
Yep.
I think you did a great job on our record, but like we sound so much better live. Like I think there is just like something about like heavy music live. So is that
Yeah.
something you've ever thought about? Like, yeah, like this is where Desolate Tomb is now, but like have you thought about like could there ever be a live version of Desolate Tomb?
Well, I've brought on people in the past. The earliest was back in 2021. I had finished Scorned by Misery, the most recent album. I'd finished writing it and hadn't started recording it yet, like officially. Um, and I got back in touch with my old vocalist from All of Sin, Daniel Gates. He's a really good friend of mine. He's actually on the most recent track I put out too. I got together with him and we, I don't even remember how the conversation came about. I think he expressed an interest in getting back into music. And around that time, I'd really been praying about where to go with Desolate Tomb because that was another point where I had almost just walked away from it. I was exhausted from writing the first album because not a lot of people know, I guess, that there's like a whole other album out there that came out before Scorned by Misery. And I think looking back, 2020 hindsight, looking back, I just exhausted my creative capacity with that album because it was the first full album that I'd written on my own. I was doing a concept album based on John Milton's Paradise Lost. I was
Hmm.
kind of restructuring it, rewriting it to be more of a godly perspective. Um, and I think I just exhausted like my creative capacity with that album. And truthfully, I think that's what it was. I just was exhausted and needed to take a break. But back then, it was awful. Like I felt awful about music again. But so then I was praying about where I needed to go. Like what does this next album need to be about? What direction do I need to go with the band? Like, and now that was a question. It was like, okay, where we got established now, is this something I keep to myself, God, or is this something that I need to take live and bring on other people? Because because of the last band interaction I had, I was very cautious to bring on people. I was not sure if I was ready to do that again because, as you said, it's you if you can get a group of guys that you really like, but then like what if something goes wrong and like it disbands the whole band or something? Like I was really nervous and anxious about that. And I will say, like to this day, I still am just a tad, but I know God's got it in control. And but anyways, to get back to the story, I was praying about where to go with it, and I felt like God said, it is time to take it beyond the computer. Like take this message out into the real world. This message I'm giving you for this next album specifically, like needs to be taken out. And so, with that urging and calling, I began praying for God to send the right people and send them on His timing. Because I didn't want to rush anything. I didn't want to rush people in that weren't meant to be in it or weren't going to wholeheartedly contribute to that agenda of enhance and enhancing the kingdom, furthering the kingdom. Um, and I think through that prayer, Daniel was the first one that popped in my head. I knew all of sin. I think at that point had gone by the wayside. They had ended the band, and I think he was looking. I think, like I said, I think he expressed that he was looking to get into music again. So I just reached out to him and I was like, "Hey, I got this thing. I'm wanting to make it a live band. Do you want to come on board?" And took some conversation, and we both were praying about it. And he said, "Yeah, I want to give it a shot." And so we actually recorded a song together, "The Hands That Mar," the original version of that dropped. That was him on vocals. And so we were running with me and him doing this. There's promo pictures of us out there you can see of me and him together. Um, and we were going to move forward with it. Then, with him on board, I started looking for other members as well. And kind of a trial and error period of going through a couple lineups or just conversations with a few different people. And in one way or another, they didn't really work out. There were people that were excited to come on board, but then like it just kind of fizzled. We didn't really go anywhere with it. And I don't know, myself even being back and forth of like, well, are you sure this is what you want, God? Like, I
Hmm.
can't find people, can't find dedicated people that want to be totally on board with what you're calling me to do with this. Because in my mind, like the people that are meant to be in it are going to be fully behind the motive of the band. Um, and so this is a really long-winded answer, and I realize that. But get to today, I actually am in talks with a few people to start practicing and writing new stuff. And so I don't want to spoil too many details, but that's something in the works. There's a few people that I've prayed about, they've prayed about it, and we're locked in. And so we're actually planning to start jamming soon. And so I think finally it's crazy to see how the plan has come to fruition. I think it's finally going to be moving forward as a live act.
Yeah, that would be really exciting because it kind of fell apart, but I was thinking about doing a little tour for when we released our album, and I was kind of looking at like, well, what about the other Rottweiler bands, you know, see if we
Yeah.
could like link up with them and stuff. And I was like, hey, because you're down in Oklahoma, am I right?
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
so I was like, we've never played a show in Oklahoma. Maybe we get down there, and I was like, oh wait, I'm pretty sure that's a solo project, and I don't know how easy it would be for you to get something lined up. I know you've you know have connections in music, and there's probably something that like if you had to do it, you could figure it out. But
Yeah.
yeah, that would be really cool to see. I'm excited to see where what that next chapter might look like for you. So the next question I had is something we've already talked about just a little bit, but I'd love to hear the full story if there's more worth discussing, which is how did you get into mixing and mastering? It kind of sounds like you probably didn't take the route I took. I actually went to school for it and hated that. But it kind of sounds like you did it just out of necessity. Like someone's got to record and mix these songs that I'm writing, and you know, studio work can be really expensive. If you can learn how to do, there's tons of great resources online, man. You know, like you can figure it out. You got a decent computer, you can figure it out. So is that kind of how you got into mixing? Was just like I need to do it so that my band can put out our music?
For the most part, yeah. Because with doing it by myself, that means so that is also the thing people don't. I think sometimes people can miss about a solo project is like you are everything. Like that also means the funding. All the funding comes from you.
Yeah.
And so back when I started this thing, I was freshly married to my wife. Well, we had been married about a year or two. And so like we didn't have a lot of money. So I didn't have money to just shell out to go to a studio to record and have them mix and master it. So part of it was out of necessity, but it's funny you mentioned the schooling thing because I did try going to school. I did try out audio engineering school for it. And I did probably 2 semesters, and just like you, I hated it. I was like, this is not teaching me anything. And so like I don't know. I didn't want to waste my time anymore. So I dropped out of that. And I think that's actually when I just decided to hop in. I'd been interested in it for a number of years. I'd say it started around the time when All of Sin recorded our first EP. We were working with a audio engineer out of Yukon, and we went to his house where his studio was. We sat through the studio, recorded the whole thing, and then, we did the whole like passing back and forth of mixes to check them out. And so my interest started there. And over the years, I guess it grew more and more, but I just didn't know how to get into it. I needed a good computer. I needed all this equipment. Didn't know exactly what equipment, like, audio interface, a DAW, all these plugins. And so I just saw more money than I needed. Um, and it wasn't until I found out about Reaper because Reaper is notorious for the still evaluating thing. You don't have to pay for it. You should. I'm not encouraging piracy, but you should pay for it. But you're able to evaluate it as long as you need. And so that was my gateway into audio engineering it because they have all the plugins you need. Um, at least what I needed when I first started out. I didn't need all the fancy like Fab Filter stuff, all
Hmm.
the plugin alliance plugins that I use now. And so like I just needed something to be able to record and put my music out. And funny enough, when I started putting out the music, I was using like an $80 first tack guitar that my dad had given me. Like the
Oh,
first
really?
song I ever put out was recorded with that. And then my wife had a bass, and it wasn't even like a full size bass. It was a three-fourth quarter bass or three-fourth scale bass. So it was shorter neck.
Hmm.
And I used that to record the bass. So like looking back, I was using fairly primitive stuff to record my
Yeah.
first song. But in recording that song, mixing and mastering it, I don't know, man. It just like unlocked something. I was like, I love this. Like, I love playing and writing music, but like, there's something different. There's like a different passion that comes with. I I don't even know how to like crafting it. Is that? I guess that's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
Um,
That's kind of
using
how I think about it is like a lot of the time is when I sit down to record something for Tundra, I usually have the song like 80 to 90% figured out. But then
yeah,
as I'm sitting there and I'm actually like I have all the tools I need to flesh out the song, that's where I do a lot of the writing is there while I'm recording
yep.
because you have like you can plug in your synths or you could mess with different guitar tones that maybe inspire you to go in a slightly different direction and then you can tweak the drums. So like you're doing, yeah, crafting I think is a good way of thinking about it.
Yeah, yeah, and I think it like unlocked the full picture of like making music for me because before that I could play riffs all day and like, man, I wonder how that sound with these drums. I wonder how that sound with this kind of lead over it. And getting into recording and doing, especially doing it myself, I could sit there at the computer and play out those ideas and see, does this actually sound cool when it's written down and like plugged in, or does it sound like trash actually, and I need to figure out something else. And so yeah, I think it just unlocked the full picture for me with making music, and so yeah, I was very excited to get going in that.
Yeah, that's really cool. So uh like I said, I have a little bit of a background in mixing and I still do all of the recording that we do. Um and I recorded like the demo version of our album when it was an EP. I mixed that and I ran into a lot of problems that I wasn't expecting.
Hmm.
And it kind of overwhelmed me when we were taking next steps as a band. That's why it took us so long to put out the record in large part. Like we put out the demo version in 2020, the album came out in
Hmm.
2025.
Yeah,
That's the reason it took so long is because we wanted to make sure we had a team behind us. We could find the right person to mix it and stuff. So for me, that mostly came down to like low end stuff. Like
yeah.
you
Oh
want to
yeah,
you want to hone that in because we were playing 8 string guitars, our bass was in the same octave. Kind of, we used like a pedal that like doubled it, like so there's also the octave below, and then you have
yeah,
all the double kick, and then you want to keep some of the low energy of the vocals, but not too much. But then also, most of the energy in a mix is actually in the mids, so like it's
yeah, yeah,
really awkward to balance specifically with the pieces that we were using on that album. So
yeah.
that's why I decided to offload it. So, uh, was that a specific problem you had while mixing our record, or were there other challenges that were different, maybe about doing Eternal as opposed to like Desolate Tomb?
Um, in regards to like figuring out low end and mid range and all that, I wouldn't say I ran into that challenge with your record, but that is something I dealt with early on. It took me so long to nail down I would say a decent sounding low end. I still sometimes listen to stuff I've just recorded, or like even your guys' album, I'd go back and listen to that or listen to Scorned by Misery. And I think, man, that low end is okay, but like I think it could be better. And so that's something I'm still trying to nail down. And I've heard that's often the bane of like young audio engineers is the low end, like the low mids to low end. Um, I did also have an issue with the mid range. So I knew that mid range was like, where the energy of the mix was that could make it sound dull if you pull it out too much or give it a lot of life if you know how to push it in the right ways. But I had a problem with overreaching with it. So like I would put too much and it would just sound awful. And honestly, the first album I ever put out, I refused to listen to it, and honestly, out of spite, kind of ignore its existence and deny that it exists in my mind because I listen to it. I'm like, I did such a terrible job on the
Hmm.
mix. I can't listen to it anymore. And I don't know. I just, So I had those challenges early on for sure. And it honestly, man, it was just keeping after. Sorry about that. I don't know if you hear my dog, but he just
That's
let out a
hey,
howl.
my dog goes crazy all the time. That's what they do.
I don't even know what I think he's just at nothing, honestly. But anyways, so with me, I found that it was just trial and error, and honestly, tried and true, just practice over the years. I and that I for me that practice came from mixing and mastering my own stuff. Using reference tracks for sure. That's a big thing that helped me out was listening to what other people were doing, especially when I got a nice pair of um, like flat headphones for the first time. I I remember we're in Apple Music at that point, and I made a playlist of just all these tracks I liked the mix of, and so like, I called it my reference mixed
Hmm.
playlist. And so like if I was looking to start mixing like a new Desolate Tomb track or something, I would just kind of listen to that and hear what they were doing and kind of try to mimic it in my own mixes. Things that I thought might sound good in my mix, I would compare it. So like how does my low end sound compared to one of my favorite albums to reference is I forgot the name of the album, but it's an Oceano album. It's the purple one with like honestly looks like one of the guys from the Big Brain memes.
Oh,
uh,
yeah, yeah.
Ascendancy, I think, is the name of it, or Ascendance. That's one of my favorite, not necessarily favorite albums for the musicality of it, but one of my favorite albums for the mix and master on it. It's just sounds so thick and but got a nice polish, and so that's one I reference frequently when I'm looking to do a new mix. I'm going off on a tangent here, and I apologize. I realize that
No,
now,
no, it's all right.
but yeah, I struggled with the low end and the mids early on, and just over time, it's been slowly something I've been able to refine. And with regards to your album, it was different than like mixing my own stuff, and part of that part of that could be the tuning. I mean, the first Desolate Tomb album was in drop F, so just like what I think a half step above what you guys are in. Aren't you in drop E?
Most of our songs are in drop E. Yeah.
So just like a half step above. So I have experience with working with that low end, that low of tunings. Um, I think where most of the differences were in the tempo. Your guys' stuff is a lot more like mid tempo and bouncy with more ringing out notes, as where my stuff is it can be that, but it's also um, really fast. Like I get upwards of I think like 250 on the BPMs, and there was some pretty fast stuff in your
Yeah.
guys's on your guys's album. But like it's just like double kick all the time, snare. So I'm like, there's different buildups between the two. I think the some of the I guess I'd call it a challenge, but it wasn't really an issue that I faced when mixing the Tundra record was that compressors would hit differently. I had to like kind of relearn
Mhm.
how to use a compressor for like more mid-tempo type stuff because like I
There's
was used to
longer
what I
gaps and
yeah, yeah,
yeah,
and you
yeah,
have a
yeah.
lot of like notes that would just ring out. And so like I'd hear the compressor hit, but then it'd just be like like that thing it does when I guess the release.
Hmm.
Um so there were some different things I had to do with mixing your guys' record compared to like my own stuff. Um because in Desolate Tomb stuff, when it's like just fast double kick, I can have the release a certain way so it just kind of cuts out immediately. But man, yeah, it was I liked it though. It was a learning experience. It was a lot of fun to mix your record. And you use a lot more elements than I do, like the electronic stuff. That is another thing, like the electronic stuff, and even like the you guys had didn't you guys have like a track that started out with acoustic? I'm trying to remember off the top of my
I don't
head.
think we had it. We had a couple like cleaner guitar sections on a couple
That's it.
songs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is something I hadn't really messed with before. I did on like on the first Desolate Tomb record, but like I didn't actually do any real mixing on my record. Like I just threw clean tone on. I was like, hey, that sounds good. We're just gonna keep
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
I was honestly a little intimidated to like mess with it. I was like, I don't want to suck the soul out of this. So like
Mhm.
I'm just gonna leave it. But with your record, I could tell those moments were important moments in each song that they were in. And so I really tried to pay attention to um make sure they sounded good and that the message was conveyed in an appropriate manner. But yeah, there were some different things, but for the most part, the general knowledge, I guess, of mixing and mastering carried over, and um, it was just learning, the little different quirks between that style of music and my own style.
Yeah. So, where are you wanting to go with mixing? Is that something you want to keep doing with other people? Is that something you think maybe it's just like you're gonna cherry pick if or when you do projects? Is it something you want to do more of? What would you kind of want as a goal for doing mixing and stuff?
I guess I could say a little mix of both. So you guys were actually the first full record I'd mixed, or the first full project that I had mixed and mastered outside of my own stuff, and I had a lot of fun with it. Um, I think, see, this is something I've actually been pondering myself. Like, where do I want to go with it?
Hmm.
And I did enjoy mixing for someone else, but I think it is something like I'd probably do a little more sparingly. I don't, like having three kids and having to work full time and my day job
Right. Yeah.
doesn't afford me the time to just kind of like stop that and try to get work full time and mixing and mastering. Um, I definitely want to pick up more jobs. I think it'd be a lot of fun to dip my toes into some other genres as well. And maybe eventually, if it starts picking up, then we could look at pursuing that in a full time manner. But for now, I think just if a band approaches me and says, "Hey, I like what you did on this mix. Can you mix our stuff?" Like, sure, let's talk about it.
Yeah. Well, yeah, especially if they're not like in a rush of any kind. Like if like you're
Yeah,
like, "Hey man, I got kids, I got another job, I have my own projects I'm working on."
yeah,
So, like if you were like, "I could do it, but just like don't expect a quick turnaround." If they're cool with that, that's hey, that's still uh potentially great work for you to do. So
yeah,
that's something else to keep in mind that I've had to think about with other projects I've been doing as well. Because I also have two kids. I also have a full-time job that sometimes requires me to travel and is very demanding of my hours and
yeah,
stuff like that. So it's but just focus on things that aren't as time sensitive, and that also forces it to be spread out enough that it doesn't suck the joy out of it as well. Because if you do it
yeah.
all the time, then it's hard to
Mhm.
stay excited about it. But
And
if
see that, sorry, that right there is one thing too that keeps me from, I think, wanting to fully make music a job. Is I love playing music, I love writing music, I love the mixing and mastering side of music, and I don't want it to get to a point where it feels like a job, because then I think some passion and creativity kind of gets sucked out of it in place of hitting deadlines or something.
right.
And for me, I'd like to keep my job as my job, and then my hobbies or passions are my hobbies and passions. So, but again, if people just start hitting me up saying like, "I want you to mix my stuff. I like what you did on your record. Can you do this for me?" I'm sure. Like if God opens that door, then for certain I'll walk through it.
Right on. Well, Dakota, thanks again for hopping on. Is there anything else you want to let people know about? Anything you want to plug? Anything exciting worth letting people know about that has just come out or is about to come out?
No, nothing in I guess the short term coming out, but like I said, I'm looking to start jamming with the new members, and so I want to get right into writing with them, and we'll see where that goes. And think I got ideas and plans for like more records, and so there's stuff on the horizon. Big things coming soon, as the kids say.
Oh no, Desolate Tune's breaking up. What have we done? Killed it here on the Tundra podcast.
Oh man,
All right.
spoiled it. Sorry.
Well, thanks, man. Thanks again for hopping on, and thanks for doing our record. And yeah, hopefully we get to chat and hang out sometime.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me. I appreciate
Yeah.
it.